Stay on.
Everybody, welcome into another episode of The Cut. I'm your host, Christian Williams. I'm here, as always, with Randy Hall. Randy, how are you, man?
Doing good. Ready for a busy week of the show as well. Back to 2 episodes a week because it's off season and we like to do this and have fun. But busy week all in all. Got some championships this weekend for my leagues and random all-staff events that I have to be at for 5 hours. So yeah,
Sick.
fun week.
A lot of fun. Yeah, I work 7 days this week, so it's real sick. Love it. Okay, today, as you can see on the screen, if you're watching along, if you're listening to audio form, this is the 2023 quarterbacks episode. We are starting with quarterbacks this year. I feel like we did last year as well, but
always do.
Yeah. Before we get into them, which we do have a different format this year that I'll kind of highlight as we go through it. But what did you think of the Super Bowl? How'd you feel about that call at the end?
I know we're going to talk about it. So I thought it was a really good Super Bowl. Probably not like the best I've ever seen, but a very entertaining. Definitely a game with no like stakes personally for a lot of people. So that was fun. I got to watch in a nice theater room, like a 70-inch TV. So definitely shout out Sweet for that one. He's not rich. He just lives in a nice apartment building. Nice. But yeah, I thought it was nice. The call at the end, like everyone knows, like he did hold a bit, but it's a little bit more ticky-tacky, and it didn't cost the Eagles the game, but it did decide the game. So it's always going to leave a sour taste in people's mouth, whether they're Eagles fans or just fans of that game and want to just see if Jalen Hurts could do it, which it's not a guarantee by any means, but here we are. But congrats to the Chiefs. Yeah, they played well. I don't know what drugs they gave Mahomes, but
I think he was faking a little bit, if I'm being honest. I don't think it hurt that bad. I think he was scared that he like re-injured it, and I've been there.
Been there.
Yeah,
you get rolled up as alive, and every time you're like, I'm dead. Oh wait, okay, all right,
right.
I can still walk. What the hell?
Right. No, I think your point that like it wasn't the best. I think it had the potential to be, and I think that's the bummer about that call is like I think it did rob us of one of the all-time Super Bowls. On the other side of things, the Chiefs played incredibly well in the second half. Jonathan Gannon, who our other piece of news, he got hired as a head coach today. He didn't really adjust in that second half. A lot of what the Chiefs were doing was Chiefs stuff, though. It was pretty remarkable. On the other side of things, adjust. They're going to run that little whip motion. What's kind of like a fake motion.
Same play. It's not even a whip because it's a motion that is the whip, and then it's not like it's a speed out.
Yeah,
they've run the same play for 5 years in every clutch situation possible or short yardage. They run it.
Yeah,
and they run it the same exact way every time.
Yep.
And that's So good news for NFC West teams. Deebo Samuel, you can just continue to do this kind of things to people because Jonathan Gannon got hired by the Cardinals as the head coach. I'm assuming they're not going to be able to scheme up against the best plays of anyone in the NFC West.
Yeah, that's fair. I do think Jonathan Gannon had a really good year. I mean, from an efficiency standpoint, it's just he kind of got exposed in that final game, which you'd think would make people question it, but he's a good leader, and I think that played a role as well. So
I'm not sure the Cardinals had a lot of options. It seemed like a lot of people turned them down. So
yeah, I was hoping Lou Anarumo from the Bengals was going to get that job because I think he deserves it as much as anyone. What he's done with that Bengals defense has been pretty remarkable, but turns out I think the Bengals they should be the AFC favorites. I know the Chiefs really are going to be every year from now on, but
yeah. Let's see what the Bengals do improving the roster. Let's see what the Chiefs do, and we'll go from there. But yeah, it's a tough one. We'll see. We're not guaranteed Andy Reid's back. I think that's an understated topic.
He was riding his high and said, "I think I might stick around."
Yeah,
but people have changed their minds, and I think going out like that might be a good idea. But we'll see. We'll see. On the other, so more news. Shane Steichen. The Eagles are losing both coordinators. Shane Steichen got hired by the Colts officially today, and so that's going to kind of play a role in how, we're going to talk about some of these quarterbacks today, and the Colts are very much so in the market for a rookie quarterback. They have been very explicit about that. Chris Ballard and Jim Irsay have been saying we are going to get a rookie quarterback, so they're tipping their hand and they don't even care. I think it's a great hire, though. Steichen has been phenomenal for the Eagles, and what he's done for Jalen Hurts has been pretty invaluable, because I think they made the offense work for what they had, and then they changed it entirely once they got AJ Brown, which I thought was cool. So
yeah, and it wasn't necessarily Steichen's kind of system what he was known for coming in with a running quarterback. So he definitely has shown the ability to adjust. I think this may be his best version of his offense, and I do think they have, in theory, the weaponry on offense for the Colts already with a quarterback that can run and pass efficiently to really thrive. So I'm excited. Spoiler alert, we're doing Friday Fix again, hopefully on Friday. Talk to Kevin. On the Colts, just because Christian traded with him last week. I definitely picked the Bears, and then Christian tried to weasel out of it, but he picked the Colts, and I'll be back next week picking something probably safe. No trading, maybe.
Yeah.
We'll go from there. But maybe the Cardinals with the new coach. Maybe we'll screw around with that one. But either way, it'll be an exciting kind of discussion to go into a few different ways that they could approach it. But I do think the Colts this was the right hire, of the candidates, or at least one of the right hires. And I think they're on a good path.
Yeah, for sure. Last piece of news before we get into quarterbacks is actually news about a quarterback, and Derek Carr got released. Randy, as a Raiders fan, how do you feel about this?
Yeah, right thing by Carr. It sounded like the Raiders and the Saints wanted him to take a pay cut instead of restructuring in order to make the deal happen. It did seem like the trade was going to be centered around like a third round pick anyways. They're going to get that back in comp pick next year anyways. Carr's just not taking less money for no reason. This way the Saints have to come get him now. They can't just, we'll trade for you if you take a pay cut, And there's going to be other suitors now that they don't have to deal with pick, including the Panthers. I think that's going to be a strong candidate to not have to trade 3 first-round picks to get up to 1 to get to the quarterback you want. I think you could definitely sit back and, punt that kind of decision to a different era. I do think Frank Reich and that team with Derek Carr could do a lot of really good things. So we'll see with that. A good thing for Derek Carr. I'm hoping he succeeds. Like you said, a Raiders fan, but the way that they've scapegoated Derek Carr, who's is one of the better quarterbacks in the league and one of the better people, one of the best leaders. It's really disheartening to see, the all-time passing leader basically, and face of the franchise just be shipped off as a scapegoat for a new coach that you can't afford to fire.
Yeah, it is a bummer. Derek Carr is only 31 years old, so wherever he goes, I mean, it's not a short-term investment, I don't think. I mean, I think it could start that way, but he's got some mileage left, I think.
He's got at least a 4 or 5 year contract left in him at this level of play, which is top 15 easy.
Yeah. I think McDaniels made that tougher to see this year. But I think we will see that the version of Derek Carr that we saw in 2021 is still there, because he's only 31, and I don't think he's falling off a cliff just yet. So, all right.
If he goes to the Panthers, DJ Moore deep shots.
Yeah. If he goes to the Jets,
we know Derek Carr's throwing that fucker deep. So
Yeah, Jets are a good landing spot. There are a few
They
good
are.
landing spots for him. I think the Bucks would be very fun, but they don't have
They're
cap.
like one of those outside shots, but it would give him, top end weaponry. Just not the best line, which he's had to deal with for the last couple of years. So
Exactly. Yep. For sure. All right, let's get to our 2023 quarterback rankings. In the past, we've done this. We just give our top 10s, and it takes about 2 hours, and no one wants to listen to that, and we don't want to do that anymore. So we're going to go with a little bit of a different format. We're going to give our top fives and then kind of talk through some of our honorable mentions, guys that didn't quite get into it, and we're going to go 5-1. So leave you in suspense for the end of the show. Randy, why don't you start with your
it's
five?
happening. So my 5 is Hendon Hooker, Tennessee product who's really shined. I would say amongst like the leaders in the country in this offense. It is a bit of a gimmicky offense. It doesn't fully translate to the NFL unless you're going to really revamp your system. So I do think that has something to be said there. I will say also he had a very late season ACL injury, but I don't think he's going to be picked anywhere where someone's going to expect him to really play this year at all. So I don't think that's going to be that big of an issue. The other concern for him is he is one of the older quarterbacks. I believe he's 24. So those are two concerns, and that offense, just being a tempo spread vertical offense, basically air raid, a different way to say it. I think those being the three concerns, I can get over that as some guy that I'm not, necessarily demanding to be day one face of the franchise. So I do want that stated, but he has got, top level size, great mobility, really his mechanics are like quietly good. I want to say like they're not like the greatest thing in the world, but I mean,
His
really,
release is okay. Yeah.
yeah, like he definitely has to improve it. But again, the system is where I think I dinged it more because of the system and really not getting to see stuff like that and different kind of pocket awareness and processing where it's just like a lot of okay, we're throwing a deep this play, you know. So
Right.
I do think he's got some areas to show more than necessarily areas to improve. That's where I'm like kind of
Yes.
tempting fate there, I will say, but I do think he is not like listed as an NFL starter for me. I think by our scale, which we have changed it every year, is a potential NFL starter
No,
under
no, no.
this.
Let's clarify. Our scale hasn't changed, but our
The
titles.
wording's changed
Yeah,
every
yeah,
fucking
yeah.
year.
Well, here's the
'Cause-
thing. So, background on that too. I don't want to give round grades because positional value doesn't get incorporated into that, which
it's true.
we know what the round grades would be, and then we can kind of incorporate cutoffs if we want. But right now, we've just got like I think you said potential NFL starter is one of them.
Yep.
NFL starter, quality NFL starter, all pro, like Hall of Fame, I think is one. I don't think anyone's hitting that tier really ever, but um, yeah, sorry for interrupting. Go
No,
ahead.
you're good. Just quickly, his biggest strengths for me, placement, accuracy. He's got above average arm strength, good anticipation, and good decision making. But again, we got to see it in a more pro style offense. So I think that's where a lot of people's reservations will be: the offense, age, and injury. You're going to hear that a lot for him. I know like people like McAfee were like pounding the table for him last week, just out of the blue, kind of. Gotta love Pat. But I do think he could be a long term backup in the NFL that could be really successful on step in, and he could definitely have a meteoric rise. Like Brissett or Geno Smith, even. Unfortunately, I picked two black quarterbacks, so it seems like pigeonholing there, but
I think Geno's a good comp for him.
it is. I just don't.
I know.
It's like picking the same. You don't want a helmet scout. You don't want to. It's just
Yeah, for sure. So Hooker's my 6, and I kind of agree with a lot of what you're saying. My biggest hangup is the offense. A lot of the stuff he was doing was half field reads, and I thought that would change a little bit this year, and it just didn't. It was still just the half field stuff where he works a concept to one side, and the other side they don't even run routes on that side because they have kind of crafted this offense that works. And I think that he executed it well. And like you're saying, I think, I think we need to see if he can do that. It's tough to knock him and say he can't because we don't necessarily know. And he excelled in a run first offense before he transferred to Tennessee. He's got that ability. He's mobile. I think he can extend plays fairly well. It's surprisingly not one of his biggest strengths, I don't think. But
Yeah, his like off platform isn't like it's. I mean, if we're saying like average is like 6, like it's above average, but
yeah, but it's right
barely.
around there. Yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, I think there was Hooker talk for the first round, and I mean, I guess I understand if you think that you can craft something around him, but he's not a game-changing quarterback to me. I think he's like a
yeah,
high-level game manager, even at his peak at the NFL. So,
yeah.
um,
I do think he'd be a fantasy relevant quarterback if it's the
yeah,
right situation and he gets time to develop in a system. So
yeah, for sure. All right, I'll go over to my 5, which is Jaron Hall, the BYU quarterback that's been in school kind of for a long, long time. We talk about Hendon Hooker being old. Jaron Hall is also very old. I think they're both going to be 25 before they take a snap at the NFL level, which is a problem. Quarterbacks definitely last a little bit longer, but the age debate is why couldn't you do that when you were 20 like some of these other guys? It's not so much, oh, he's old, and so we're thinking about contracts. It's more, why didn't you dominate? Well, Hendon Hooker, I think you can make that argument, but Jaron Hall really didn't play a whole lot of football before then. He was sitting behind Zach Wilson for a year. He played baseball at BYU, really good athlete in that respect, very good baseball player. And then, yeah, I believe he went on a mission trip. And so he's a fifth year junior, I think, that ended up graduating, obviously, because he was there for so long. Um, Smaller guy. And I think that that's going to be a bit of a hang up, too. Once again, past 4, I don't think we're looking at starting NFL quarterbacks. I think the class is 4 deep, and I think there are guys that could step in and spot start. And I think that we will see that from this class. But Jaron Hall is one of those guys that I think could be a high level backup. Good placement. I like what he can do off platform. He's got a baseball arm and it shows. You can see him when he's running around back there. Didn't take the leap forward that I was kind of expecting this year. He was good and statistically he was efficient, but it didn't always feel like that, especially when you're watching the games. He was without 2 of his top weapons for a good portion of the year, and I think maybe had he had them, he would have produced a little bit better. But overall, I think processing wise, I do think that he eliminates things very quickly. I think he sees the field well. He's got good above average arm strength, but it's nothing spectacular. I think he's got good zip on his short to intermediates. I think he can get his timing a little wonky on deep balls, but I do think he has the arm to get it there for the most part. It's really the off-platform stuff and anticipatory throws with him. I think that's what kind of separates him from maybe some of these other guys that will land in the honorable mentions. He anticipates extremely well because he had such command over the offense. He knew he had a lot of chemistry with his wide receivers, and those are things that I think translate pretty well. And so I think, once again, high level backup, just a guy that I think could come in and maybe be a Taylor Heineke level, like, oh, he started first season and he was fine, but we want to replace him type of guy. I don't think he has a super high ceiling, but that's what we're getting outside of the top 4 in this quarterback class. So shout out Jaron Hall. I've been a fan of his. He was up a little higher for me. I actually had him above my 4 for a second there, and then I was like, no, this is dumb. Because Jaron Hall might be a day 3 pick when all is said and done. I think Hendon Hooker is probably a day 2 pick.
yeah,
But yeah, that's kind of where I'm landing here.
yeah. For me, Jaron Hall's my 7, so another guy snuck in right ahead of him by half a point. By the way,
Very nice.
yeah, there's a lot of concerns with him for me, and the Senior Bowl didn't help him for me necessarily. Really, it helped no quarterback. So shout out Will Levis and Stetson Bennett for not going.
Yeah, but Stetson got arrested instead. He should have went.
Well, but he shouldn't have had his hat backwards. It's the old coward debate.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's it's not the best, but a college guy that's been there for a long time and done a lot, getting drunk and doing something stupid that didn't hurt anyone, I believe is so.
Yeah. Well, he was in
let
Texas.
it go a little bit. Yeah.
He just beat the tar off of TCU. Of course he's getting arrested.
Yes, that's fair. But yeah, either way, I do think Hall again is going day 3. I think he's a good high level backup. It's just he does everything good, just nothing besides off platform. And I have a decently above average arm strength for him. That's about it. He doesn't do anything poorly, but
he is a good runner with the ball too. I think that like he's not a great athlete. He's a good athlete. He's not a great athlete with respect to NFL level athletes, but he's got good ball carrier vision. Like he runs with power. There's a little bit of like Jalen Hurts has a really weird running style, and I'm not comparing those two players at all, but I think there is some of Hall or Hurts in Hall and how he runs. I guess is how I'd frame that. But
sorry. Okay. Yeah, I saw it a couple times. I know what you're saying, but I do think I have him just slightly lower, and it's negligible. The differences between Hendon Hooker, Stetson Bennett, shout out my 6, and Jaren Hall, in my opinion, all high value backups. Both of our 4s, Will Levis. The only, white quarterback in the top, so Zach Wilson treatment. He's going to get, shot up into the top 1 or 2 debate for the rest of the cycle. We've already seen it from Kiper. Even with criticism back at it, he's full on board with it. So, and with good reason. And I think a lot of this is going to be propelled by people's view of Josh Allen, in my opinion. And I don't like that just because they kind of play the same. And they both have, demanding arms. So I do think there is a bit of a play style thing there that does make complete sense to me. But all in all, so just straight up, Levis is bet on trades. And I think Richardson's the same thing. So I do have these both in the same tier. So shout out obviously my 3's Richardson in that case. But he's definitely the bet on trades. The dominant size, build, great mobility. Not as good as Richardson, but good mobility. Elite arm talent, best of the class. And really, I'd say he's already probably like top 10 arm strength in the league. The ability to fit into tight windows and throw upfield and everywhere, all throws of the field, he's going to be the top of it. His mechanics are pretty good, clean, sharp most of the time. His biggest things really are he just believes in his arm. And I'm perfectly fine with that. I do think it's the same thing coming out as Allen. So again, there's a lot of comparisons there. I just don't see that level of complete talent, in my opinion. And I definitely wasn't the biggest Josh Allen guy coming out, but also we weren't that far into this at that point. So I think a little bit of it we would have, kind of got the kinks out and liked him a bit more. Still probably best situation for him in Buffalo. Levis is going to be kind of the same thing. He needs to get into the right system. A lot of people are going to point to the fact that he has ran like Shanahan and McVay style offenses at Kentucky, so they're gonna hype on that, and he's gonna keep getting pushed up. That's all I'm gonna say on that. But he has all the traits. I just think he trusts that arm so much. He's not the fastest processor, not the best decision maker because of it. He's gonna cause turnovers, but he can run. He's basically a truck, just like Allen. So to me, I think he is an NFL starter. More of a grade. I would be happier saying like back end first, second, personally. Yeah, but he's going top 10. There's no question in my mind.
Yeah, he would. I think he'd have a 3rd-round grade for me, which is why we got rid of rounds, because that's silly.
Yeah.
I know he's going in the top 10 in the NFL draft. With Levis, so you make some really good points. He trusts his arm, and I think to a point that's a good thing. He likes to, take risks. The problem is he doesn't calculate them very well, and his eyes are super slow, and his decision making is problematic. And when we were talking about Allen was like, I think, a 4th-year junior at Wyoming when this was happening,
Mhm.
but he didn't play as much. Well, I guess he did play about as much football as Levis, because Levis sat behind Sean Clifford at Penn State.
Yeah.
I'm not
He,
knocking him for that, but
Allen
like,
never had the help around him that Levis had as well.
right. And then your point about the the Shanahan McVay style offense, I think that's right, but isn't that they hid him with that offensive scheme at times, and you could feel it, because even when they were down maybe 2 scores, they would still really try to commit to the run, which with Chris Rodriguez back there, that was a pretty smart call. That's a good running back. On the other side of things, Levis could never go out and just win you a game. And I know he won games, and so people are going to point to, oh, well, he's a winner. He won in the SEC. He didn't win games on his back. And I think that when we talk about even Anthony Richardson, which he's also my 3, spoiler alert, we just spoiled the next pick. Kind of a bummer.
It's the same tier, man. What do you want from me?
It is, yeah. But even when you talk about Anthony Richardson, like, I watched him single-handedly win against Utah in week 1 last year, and I saw him single-handedly keep Florida in games because the help wasn't around him. Whereas Will Levis, even this year, everyone said the help's gone. He had 2 incredible freshman receivers that really bailed him out on some deep balls and bailed him out with Yak. And I don't mean to pile on Will Levis. This top, like, QB1 overall stuff is crazy. I think we get infatuated with the traits, and I understand it. On the other side of things, like, Zach Wilson should be fresh in people's minds. Like, the traits were there and still are there with Zach Wilson, but this stuff wasn't. If you're listening to the podcast, I pointed to my head. Sorry, I don't
The
normally do that.
shiny dome.
Yeah, behind a hat. But yeah, it's just I think you understand, like, the arm talent is incredible. And I get that, but at some level, like, he's got to be able to see the field too. And maybe he does. Maybe he develops at the next level. It's just I'm more comfortable. I don't have him as an NFL starter. I have him as a potential NFL starter in our scale.
So this is the thing. Like, so for the systems, like I think that's going to be more vital to him in terms of terminology and understanding the playbook right away, more
Sure.
than being a pro style offense. Because
Sure.
again, like you said, you can't hide behind that kind of system and running heavy. My problem with this is he is going to be so pushed up to number 1 now, especially with the increased likelihood that the Colts are trading to 1. The thought process of Steichen with him and being able to run the ball still with the quarterback and play 11 on 11 truly, offense versus defense with the running quarterback having to be guarded, and then having a guy that can still throw like Hurts, and it's all the same kind of things. So it's going to be pushed up heavy, and that's my issue with it. Him going 1, I think it's like 50-50 between him and Young right now. And I think Stroud is obviously better than Richardson and Levis, but it doesn't matter. So for me, I think he's probably going to go 1. If not 1, I think he's going really quick after. And
Sure.
the thing with decision making in that arm, you can take it all as the negative, or you can take it as a positive. So I will spin it as the positive. He's not scared to throw in tight windows. And we do see that with college quarterbacks coming to the NFL who only threw to wide open fucking receivers in college because of talent differences. NFL, there's no such thing as talent differences like that. So
Right. Yeah.
you have to be able to throw in the tight windows. We know he will. It's just, is the turnover bug going to still be there? Because he had like over 40 turnovers in college, which is a lot. It's almost the same amount of fumbles as interceptions. It's close. I think it's like 5 or 6 off. So
He's
There's
reckless.
there's a lot of concerns there. There's a lot of mistakes that he makes, but the
Yeah.
traits are there, and I
Yeah,
think he
man.
I think he could be. I think he's going to be a good fantasy quarterback and possibly win divisions. And like I think he has a really good shot to be good. Isn't going to be much better. I think he might be Daniel Jones with a better arm. Um,
That's good. I like
and
that.
I don't think he's Allen, but he
Yeah.
looks more like Allen than Daniel Jones. So
Yeah. We also we comped him in the Football Guys Guide to Carson Wentz, which I loved Carson Wentz. But
before he
like
got hurt, yeah, he's fantastic.
before he got hurt, the Levis plays very, very similarly to how Carson Wentz did. But on the other side of things, like we're now seeing what like Carson Wentz always made mistakes. He just made up for them with his athleticism. Hopefully Levis can continue to do that. You're right. I have him as a potential NFL starter. I do see a world in which he is one of the best two quarterbacks in this class. But the transition here, I don't see why you would take that shot on a guy who's 23 and was in school for 5 years over the guy who's 21 and has 10 to 12 starts under his belt. I don't know how many Anthony Richardson has, but I'm just going to flow right into my
Yep.
Richardson
Well,
eval. Athleticism and mobility are a massive, massive part of quarterback play. Levis has it for sure. Richardson has way more of it. And Richardson would immediately step onto a field and be a QB1 and for fantasy, if that's how we're viewing this. On the other side of things, there are some serious concerns with Anthony Richardson that are mostly mechanical. From a processing standpoint, I actually think he's more advanced than Levis. I think that he works through his progressions. He can often get to his backside dig. He can often get to his third read. And maybe his third read is him pulling the ball down and running, but he gets there and he gets there quickly. There are things with Richardson that when I went back and watched all 22, because at first you don't have it, right? And so my view on Richardson was, wow, this kid has got a lot of work to do, which is still true. But then you watch all 22 and you see, okay, all of these receivers are blanketed. He is correctly not throwing into these insane windows. He's just trying to run the ball. His movement within the pocket is more advanced than I would say everyone except Bryce. I think Bryce is more willing to step into a throw with someone coming down the barrel at him. I think Richardson is very, very skilled at just shifting to the left, shifting to the right, and then keeping a sound base where like his mechanics are always a little off. But I think he does a good job in staying on platform in those situations, whereas other quarterbacks would just kind of shift to the left and kind of be off platform and throw an inaccurate football. Richardson throws inaccurate footballs all the time, and that is something that I think NFL teams will not like about his game. But once again, that comes down to mechanics. It's oftentimes that his front half gets ahead of his lower half to a point that's bad. With quarterback mechanics, he should be snapping his hips before his arms coming through, but oftentimes he snaps his hips and then his arms like still way back here. And then he throws a ball into the dirt or he throws a ball 40 feet into the air. Those are things that can be fixed though. And so that's why when I talk about these two quarterbacks, I say, why wouldn't you take the shot on the younger kid that has more to work with, I think, over the guy who A, had to transfer and then B, just really didn't. Production was not Will Levis's forte. It wasn't Richardson's either, but again, smaller sample size. So I love Richardson for what he is. I think he'll need to get better at anticipating those openings. And I think, too, the one big thing is like learning how to throw with touch because he just zips everything. But I think that those are things that you can teach a kid. And I think that he is currently better than Will Levis. I do think that.
We made this argument over text before. I think Levis is a better quarterback right now, but it's so close, and they both are basically all traits. I
Right.
think you're fair to bet on either. if we're talking about, build, again, Levis is going to have a step up on him day one in terms of the playbook and terminology and be able to mix in right away and be ready. But Richardson's got him as an athlete, and he doesn't have, he has bad habits. They're very coachable, and he seems very coachable, and he seems to be like a good leader. So not that Levis isn't, but I'm just saying, I think both are all traits, but have, sky's the limit upside. I think both have the ability, depending on landing spot and coaching, blah, 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 blah. Everything has to be perfect for all these quarterbacks really to succeed. That's the truth for every quarterback. And I think both could be elite talents, especially fantasy relevant. So I think both are really good. Richardson, like you said, touch is a huge thing with him. Decision-making wise, I saw, especially against the better teams like Tennessee and Georgia, a lot of times of, like you said, blanketed deep. So he's taking the checkdowns, and then he has two people open deep, but he takes the check down because that's what's been open the last drive. And so he gets into rhythms of that, and I don't think his eyes are just quite there yet, especially against tougher defenses. Well, those are the type of defenses you play in the NFL. That's where I have concerns. If I had to pick one of the two to play week one, it's Levis. And that's for me why Levis goes ahead.
Yeah, I should probably reframe. So I think Richardson's still a year away because I don't think you can throw him out there with those poor mechanics. That said, and I think Levis can go out there and win a couple games, win maybe not on his own, but in the right situation for sure. But I think Richardson's ceiling is exponentially. That's a strong word. I think it is a lot higher than what Levis's is because Richardson's going to go to the combine, and if he decides to run, things are going to change. I think the rhetoric is going to change because he's going to run like what Justin Fields ran at his pro day, and people are going to be like, "Holy shit! Didn't know he was this athlete." Did you turn on the film? Probably not. Speaking of which, did you watch the 2021 Georgia game that he played?
Yes, I just did today.
Okay, so that was where I was like, okay, I see what he can be, and I watched that one before this season, so I was kind of excited. But it was a mixed bag, right? It was like all the mistakes were all on tape, and then all the good things were also on that tape. So I don't know.
That Tennessee game was bad. It was tough to watch, and that was like the first one I watched. I was like, why are we hyping this dude? I kept going. So we're all good. It's just, he's definitely a year away. I don't know if he gets that chance. That's my issue. So we'll see how it goes. But I'm definitely pretty high up on him. It's just, and with all these mechanic things, I want to point out Levis too, because he has some quirks as well that he needs to, finish out. The top two, not really. I think they're pretty solid. But for both these guys, all they're doing for the next months is mechanics and footwork and working on play calling at the next level and all that shit. And they're all at QB camps. So we could get to pro day most likely because I don't think anyone throws at these top four at the combine. Pro days for all four of these guys at the top, and Richardson and Levis could look much improved and a lot of mechanics, and that's going to eliminate some concerns, and they're going to be higher up, and Christian will actually think they'll be NFL starters, and we'll because it's negligible how close he is. I know it. I know he can't be more than 2 points off at most. So I do think both are going to be good NFL starters. I think both go in the top 10. I think Richardson's the only one that has a chance to slip out simply because of what we just talked about, that he might not be able to play this year at a top level.
Sure.
So
I do want to throw out there, Richardson is not Malik Willis, and I'm tired of seeing it. Stop. Just stop. It's
I can't even. He's closer to. Obviously, he's closer to Fields than Levis or Willis, obviously. But
yes,
I try to
he's somewhere.
What was your comp in the guide?
Cam Newton. It was aggressive, but
but accuracy concerns, mechanic concerns, great runner, big arm. I get
big
it.
guy. it's definitely more of a ceiling comp, but like if he hits a ceiling, like this kid could win MVPs, and I think that that's where I was trying to get to. Like
especially
he,
with how the game's changing. But I think we've covered the
yeah,
the concerning risers enough. Let's go. I'm going to go to my 2 and your 1, CJ Stroud. And
sure,
want to say again, same tier. And I do have these tied. I had the last 2 tied. So I could use the athleticism scores to really
hmm,
finish these out. Uh, I'm just gonna. We've talked about Stroud and Young a lot, so I'm just gonna really cover Stroud accuracy. He's an elite surgeon back there. If he has a pocket, he has a touchdown. That's just simply how this is going. Uh, Terrific instincts in the passing game, good pocket awareness, top level production at a top level, school. Um, Good athleticism, which we saw more of in one game, unfortunately. So I still have his off platform as basically average or slightly above because we really only saw it in one game on like 1 or 2 spurts here and there because he really didn't do a lot of off platform stuff because he didn't have to because he was able to sit in the pocket and get the ball out quick in the right spot in the perfect placement with good processing. He has a
yep,
really good arm. I think he has a better arm than Bryce Young. Um,
yes,
I think Bryce Young. I won't do this comparison stuff. I think anticipation wise, he has really good anticipation. I do think there's a few times, especially on like deep balls and some more off platform. I will say as well, where he's not anticipating the touch needed, so he overthrows a few of those. So that's why I have his anticipation slightly lower at 8, so still really fucking good.
hmm,
And I do think pocket awareness, it's just kind of hand in hand with off platform. There's a few times where he can slide and step, but he's really processing, trying to get that ball out quick into the right read. And Ohio State has a very complex receiver playbook because they know they can do it. They know they can give them options on every route. So he's trying to go through a bunch of different plays at the same time in his head and look at all the reads and make a play. He's still got some stuff to improve on, but most of it is just showing his athleticism. Because if you put him behind a good offensive line, he can win you a Super Bowl.
yeah,
Plain and simple. That's what we're here for.
yeah,
We're not here for him to run for 600 yards and be fantasy QB1. We're
yeah,
here for him to win Super Bowls, and that's plain and simple what he can do.
yeah. Yeah, there's so the thing I think that separates Stroud from Young is that elite ball placement. I think from now, I that's not to knock Bryce because I think those are very much so the 1 and 2 in terms of placing the football in buckets. There's one throw that Bryce made against Kansas State in that bowl game, the deep touchdown that was just one of the more insane throws. But then you go back to the Stroud film and you're like, oh, he's doing this weekly. Like he's dropping buckets deep weekly, and he throws very accurately in the middle of the field and to the intermediate parts of the field. And I think that NFL offenses, you have to be able to throw to the middle of the field. And I think the touch that Stroud throws with over the middle of the field, the way he layers balls over linebackers, just it's special stuff. And that's, I mean, Stroud grades out as a quality NFL starter. So does Bryce, for what it's worth for me. Um, but yeah, I think you're right. I think we need to see what kind of athlete he is. I think he's a good athlete. I especially with what we saw against Georgia. That's the best game he's ever played, and that's what we are leaving on. And I think that that
Yeah.
does also matter.
And
Um,
I do want to clarify a lot of the athleticism talk here. Like, it's not just about him running QB sneaks and running options and scrambling and it's about you're not going to have perfect blitz pickups every time, and he was inconsistent against pressure at times, and anytime the pocket moved he was really inconsistent. So that's he's kind of the epitome of like set feed. A set feet, if his feet are set, you're done. There's no question. So, um,
yeah,
it is surgical. It's harkening back to all the greats. I'm not gonna mention all those names because then I'm not putting unrealistic expectations on them. But there's people with a lot of rings that just sit in the pocket and dice everyone up every week for decades. And I think Stroud can do that. And I think he showed in the Georgia game he can do more when he wants to. So if that's what he's being tasked to do at the NFL, that's all he heard for 2 weeks, and then he did it because he knew Georgia's defense was getting to him. There's no question. I think he's ready to do that at the next level, and I think he can excel at the next level.
Yeah, our comp for him was Joe Burrow.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think Joe has. Would I say Joe Burrow has a better arm? Would I say that?
I would say
think I would.
Similar.
I think it's similar, but I think I might have a slightly better on him. But the thing with Joe Burrow is he thrived off platform at LSU, so we saw it going forward. So if he can continue to do that kind of stuff and develop and look like Joe Burrow off platform, this is winning Super Bowls. This is what we saw on Sunday from people.
I also think the intangible stuff is definitely in favor of Joe Burrow. Like, that dude is one of the better leaders I think I've ever seen at the NFL level. And I don't know that Stroud is. I wouldn't say he's a bad leader, but there were some things.
Stroud's quiet. So there's some concerns that we saw, like Herbert wise coming in, but we got to see Herbert show that because he was asked to at the Senior Bowl, where we don't get to see that from Stroud. So we'll see it at the NFL level, I'm sure. It's not like he's a bad leader by any means if you just look at those teams, but there's just some stuff there. So I like I said, I have him tied. I have him at 2. It's super close, but I mean,
technically from a film standpoint, I also have Bryce, but the production kicks Stroud up to
kicks Stroud, that's for sure. And I will say they're tied for me, and I have a -1 for Young for his side. That's why for his side, that's why I put him at 1 for me. And I want to specify, I'm not saying by any means he can't be elite NFL Bryce Young at his size. I think he will be, but he's a size outlier. So I think that deserves a small, minus there.
What do you think he measures at the combine? The rumored number is 5'10.5".
I think he's gonna.
I think he's 5'11".
I think he's 5'10".
I know.
I think he's like 5'10 and a quarter.
Okay,
and
so you would take the under.
I think he plays at like 180, 185. I think he's gonna measure in at 205, and then I don't think he can drop 10 pounds for his pro day.
I don't think he gets that. I think he's in the like 196 range, 197 is what I would guess.
Yeah. All the people that you could compare his size to are stockier. Like Kyler is stockier than people think.
Oh yeah, he's well built. I mean, he measured over 200 pounds at the combine.
Yeah, that's not Bryce. He's that size, but he's skinnier. But he has that Lamar quality of not taking the big hit. He doesn't have the Lamar, pure running athleticism, but he has that quality.
Yeah. So I want to start in on Bryce and say that he's a gamer. Like, that dude, he willed Alabama to wins, which sounds crazy. Like, Alabama's quarterback doesn't ever need them to do that. They absolutely did this year, and Bryce Young put the team on his back. He has won everywhere he has ever been. He's got those intangible qualities. He is a fantastic leader. You see that. It literally just is dripping off of him. On the other side of things, the size is concerning. Like, he took big hits in college. He got up from them. But I think that even the SEC is a little bit different than the NFL, and a big hit from Myles Garrett is going to be a lot different than a big hit from, Jalen Carter even. It's close because Jalen Carter's elite, and we'll get to the defensive tackles here in a few weeks. But I do think that Bryce's size is going to knock him. And that's why, like, if he goes 1, that means that some team thinks that he is going to be an all-time great, I think, because I think you have to convince yourself of that to draft a kid that's 5'10", 180 pounds as your face of the franchise. I think it's a good bet, though, because, like I said, he's won everywhere he's been. And from a we talked about mechanics a lot. I think mechanically he's fine. I think his release is fine, but his when he's dropping back, like his feet get all wonky. It doesn't matter. Like
Yeah.
he plays the position in a very different way, but it works, and I think that it will continue to work.
I think you can clean up some of that stuff as well. So
Sure.
I will say again, the only thing I have Bryce Young better than CJ Stroud in is athleticism, off platform by a heavy margin, anticipation a little bit more, and pocket awareness.
Yep.
Like
Same.
a lot of that is intangibles at the quarterback position that I have CJ Stroud better than. But Bryce Young is good at those intangibles. He just has some mechanical issues he needs to clean up a bit, and then that's about it. I mean, honestly, like he's accurate and he throws with really good anticipation on all levels of the field, including and especially off platform. And that's again where CJ has to improve. So I think you win either way. Honestly, I think you win either way with either of these guys day one.
And
the issue is
Go
who
on.
goes to the Texans, because that's the worst situation possible.
Yeah. I think it's Levis. Potentially. I don't know. I think Levis is going 1. I think the Texans also trade to 1. That's one of my theories here, is that the Texans know that they need to beat the Colts to 1. The last point about Bryce for me, one of the smartest football players in college football. And that shows the anticipation that you just brought up, that he's one of the better anticipatory throwers I've watched in general. I think Joe Burrow had it. I think that's it. I think he's better than, Fields, who everyone knows I was super high on Fields. I think way better than Lawrence. I think just guys that we've talked about in the last 3 years, especially also last year's quarterback class doesn't count because I can't bring any of those guys up. But from
our ones, our combined one of Sam Howell, that's the only
starter
rose among the thorns.
Yeah, he's a starter in the NFL now, which is crazy. Allegedly. Also, that might change before the end of the offseason.
Allegedly, in the Commanders, is not a good pairing.
That's fair. But yeah, Bryce Young, super smart. I think that's what's gonna. Those things translate. We get infatuated with traits, and I'm one to do it. And Bryce Young doesn't really have all those traits, but what he does have is football IQ, leadership, and the things that we've seen now be the most important things at the quarterback position. So that's it. Do you want to talk honorable mentions?
Yeah, honorable mentions. I kind of gave my 6 and 7 Stetson Bennett just a winner, and I think he's above. He's definitely an above average athlete. I think he does everything good at the position, kind of like we talked about with Jaren Hall, but he's got some stuff to clean up. I think he's a person that might go day 2. He's the only other one I would consider, just because teams are going to really fall in love with him as a backup, though. That's
another
Whitey.
The
chance. And yeah.
There's another Whitey that I think so. I know you're about to talk about him. Tanner McKee. I think he could go round 3, like Davis Mills.
And Tanner McKee had a good Senior Bowl, right? That's like I'm making sure I'm not confusing him in my head.
No, he was
Jake
not there.
That did. Yeah, it's Jake that did.
Hayner.
Right?
Hayner won the.
That's why I was about to say that, but I was like, it's Jake, right? But yeah, Tanner, I think people are going to really love. And I think Jake Hayner, too. I think he kind of showed up with, NFL coaches there and a lot of scouts there. I think that'll net him a day 3 pick for sure. But yeah, so Stetson Bennett 6, Jaren Hall 7, Jake Hayner 8, and Tanner McKee 9. There's other quarterbacks. I really don't care. I'll come back to him. I'd rather watch everything else. Like it's real bad.
Yeah, I think that's once again the class ends with 4 in terms of what we think can be starters long term. I think I agree that Stetson Bennett is I almost said sneaky athlete. Um, but he is.
No, go ahead. Do
He's a.
you think he's scrappy or gym rat or
No,
come
I
on?
actually think he's kind of a piece of shit. If I have to, yeah, I do. I think
You thought the
I think
same about
he's.
Baker. I have the twist to
Yeah,
prove it.
yeah. Well, how's that career going? I guess.
Yeah, well,
But not well anymore. But I think Stetson has a little bit of that. I think it also, it helped that he was in that Georgia offense. But on the other side of things, like some of the stuff that he showed, even as a runner, I was like, that's not right. Like his little his jab step, as he's he juked some people out of their shoes. And I was like, yeah, that can't be real. That didn't happen. Um, but I think you're right. He's a good backup. Tanner McKee, I wanted to touch on him quickly. I actually think I'd have Haener ranked ahead of McKee. Just Haener's another one. The size isn't going to be there for everyone. I don't think all teams are going to like him. On the other side of things, those intangible things are there. But under pressure, the difference between Bryce Young and Jake Haener is that Bryce Young was phenomenal under pressure, and Jake Haener was only okay under pressure, and at times crumbled under pressure. So, and then quickly Clayton Tune out of Houston. He's a guy that I think can be a backup and also potentially give you a couple spot starts in a time of need. And then that's pretty much where the class stops for me. I know Aiden O'Connell has gotten some top 100 hype for some reason. I don't think he has an NFL arm, let alone. I think processing wise, I think he's good. Which I think that might be what you're looking for in a backup, right? Like a guy who can just go out there and hit the open guy. On the other side of things, his off-platform work is some of the worst in the tied for the worst in the class for me, I think. So just a guy
he's
that
not great.
might get drafted on day 2 for some reason, I guess.
I'd be shocked, and it's not the first time we've been shocked on a draft
Yeah,
broadcast. So
that's true. That's
okay,
true.
it's just like it's not the best class, but there's 4 guys that I think can really be top level assets at the NFL, especially in fantasy. So I assume all 4 go in the first round of rookie drafts once landing spots are decided.
They should.
If not in the first 14 picks. So
yeah.
Yeah.
I think situation might determine that as well. I think all of these guys are going top 20. And so at that point, like, hey, by the way, for fantasy, bump Richardson up. I fully support that. If Richardson goes to a good situation and you're like, okay, I'm going to take a shot, like, do it. Just do it. The upside of having him as a running quarterback, like, just do it. I think that's a smart move. So maybe not ahead of younger Stroud. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's a good point of contention for the quarterback episode. Just we're focused on the top 4 for fantasy. I think if you in the later rounds of a rookie mock want to take a shot on like Hendon Hooker or Stetson Bennett or Jaron Hall, just to throw in your taxi squad for a year or 2 and see how it's shaking out. I think we did a lot of the same things with guys like Sam Ellinger, and he got some spot starts. So I think that's what we're looking at, So, but I think that's a good take on the class. Obviously, like I already kind of spoiled, we have Friday fix, hopefully, over the Colts. Again, we still have to text Kevin.
Yes.
And
he might be watching.
He might be. But either way, I've already started that doc. I'm excited with it. I'm still toying with it, but they're a weird team, just what they're looking at. And I think we'll have a fun episode going over that. And we'll, again, go over a couple different viewpoints of how to attack their offseason. And with their new coach, I think it's actually a really good time to do it. So I think that'll be fun. And next Tuesday, I don't know what we're doing. In theory, we could do running backs. I think we could also do a rookie mock. I think that's a good point of contention for right now because we haven't done one and kind of
we haven't
roll with it.
We'll definitely We'll definitely
I think
figure
those
that
are the
out.
two options. Is kind of what I was getting. So to be one of those.
The running backs episode is going to be longer because this class is stupid, insane, and I want to touch on more guys than 5.
Well, we're
Because
going. We're going to.
you can't stop at 5 with this class. There are too many.
Well, that's the other reason we do these. I want to do it the top 5s though, is because we're probably not going to have the same top 5. I know we have the same top 4 almost exactly. I get that, but
yeah,
it probably won't be the same for running backs. We know what the top 2
I know
are.
it won't. I know it won't because I
Past
know.
then though, this is such an interesting class, and honestly, I don't think we're doing running backs next. I could just say that right now because I know obviously you're farther ahead, but I think I just want to watch like 5 games of like 16 people. So we might be saving that one for a bit and moving to like wide receiver where we care less.
Yeah, I've only watched 30, so you can catch up in that time frame. So actually, that's not true. I just haven't put grades in.
I've said multiple times on here already, this running back class is replacing the dinosaurs of the league, and they are taking all the roster spots.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be absurd, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And we were going to do that in a couple of weeks. We'll figure out next week, but we will be back for the Friday fix. Like we said, Colts fans, show up, show out. We'll probably be live when we do that. So
yes. Shout out Frankie, who sent me a text and Snapchat. Very happy this morning when he finally saw that we did the Friday thing. It's like, oh.
Yeah, I haven't been on Snapchat. I think he sent me one too, though.
Yeah.
Shout out Frankie. Thanks for watching, bud. Miss you. Okay, Randy. Anything else to add before we bounce?
No. Let's move it along. I'm excited for the Friday fix, and let's have some fun. I'm gonna need the fun night going into Saturday.
Yeah, me too. But I am seeing Ant-Man on Saturday too, so it's just loads of fun. All right, we're gonna get out of here. For Andy Hall, I'm Christian Williams. We'll talk to you guys later this week. Later.